Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
You are listening to the TrekRanks podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 87, featuring the top 5 Enterprise Guilty Pleasure episodes. Welcome, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Moorhouse. I'm the host of the TrekRanks podcast, and tonight we are diving into one of our regular series-specific topics with our top 5 Enterprise Guilty Pleasure episodes. So in the past, we have tackled Voyager and TNG so far on our Guilty Pleasure episodes, and tonight we're doing Enterprise. I love this one. So first up, let's introduce our guest tonight. She is returning for her 3rd appearance on TrekRanks. It's Heather Kirby of now the Promenade Merchants podcast, which started up this year and is awesome. Heather, welcome back.
Thank you so much for once again having me back on TrekRanks. And ironically, my very first TrekRanks episode was a Guilty Pleasure episode.
It was. So. Voyager Guilty Pleasures. So
I love talking about Guilty Pleasures with you, Jim.
Yes. Well said. And great job on the Promenade Merchants podcast. Enjoying that with you and David.
Thank you.
And our second guest is a newcomer, although I've said this before. Sometimes these newcomers you've actually heard on the show before because he left us a great voicemail with his top 5 Nog episodes. That was back on episode 72. He is coming to us from the San Antonio sector of the Texas Quadrant. It's Stephen Pastran. Stephen, how are you, man?
I'm good, Jim. Thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to this. I'm
excited to have you on, talk a little Trek. So let's get started with your Trek backstory, like we always like to get from our first time guests. So how'd you get into Trek, and have you seen it all? What's your favorite series? Tell us everything.
All right. Well, the way I got into Trek was pretty simple, actually, but I'll try to make it a little interesting. It actually happened through another franchise I love called Doctor Who, and I had been I'd been watching a ton of Doctor Who, and I thought, I want more science fiction, and so I just went straight to Netflix and I watched The Cage, and I just I binged the rest of the original series, the movies, and that was maybe 2017. Yeah, that was around 2017. So I watched the original series. I saw the first 6 movies, and then ever since then I've been, I've seen it. I have seen it all. I'm a completist. And it's funny, we're doing I know only a couple years ago, and since I've seen it all, and it's funny, we're doing an Enterprise episode because I recently finished Enterprise in December. So
oh my goodness. So wait, that is super interesting, because you just don't meet that many Star Trek fans who picked it up in 2017. That's like 3 years ago from when we're recording this. And you did it because you were watching like Doctor Who and other sci-fi and just said, I'm just going to jump into, there's 700 episoades when you started. That's crazy. So you just said, I'm just going to start and see if I like it.
I said I was going to start and see if I like it. And, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with, I think by the time I got to the Menagerie, I was in as far as the original series.
I'm floored. Heather, are you kidding me? That's amazing.
That is amazing.
That is so cool. I love The Cage, and it's, listen, it's 1964, but for me, it stands the test of time. It's just this old classic sci-fi feel. So that's a amazing entry point for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, actually, I'm going to keep saying this. People, that's the first time I've ever heard that. Usually somebody sees a movie or they see something and they say, okay, I'm going to get into it. They don't just say, I'm going to start from scratch at The Cage.
Yeah.
Okay, Steven, this is cool. Oh, so what's your favorite series today? We know that it can change, but what was your favorite?
It changes, but it's always going to go back to Enterprise.
Oh yeah, that's amazing. All right.
It always go. I'm a sucker for the underdog, the underrated. It's Enterprise.
That just might come up in one of my picks today. Okay, let's get into our TrekRanks recalibration and get into today's show.
What are you recalibrating?
Everything.
It's a sweeping, a recalibration of all systems.
As regular listeners will know by now, general order number one here at the TrekRanks podcast that we love Trek. We love to rank Trek via some deep dive topics to just get the conversation started. And remember, it's not about the ranks. We just use those as an excuse to talk about Star Trek. And I'm stumbling here because I'm just thinking, man, TrekRanks probably started before Steven even saw an episode. That's crazy. Okay. All right.
But what is that Vulcan motto? Infinite diversity.
In infinite combinations.
And what is diversity? A celebration of differences.
And as Paul and Dr. Phlox just said, TrekRanks is basically just a big old celebration of differences. There are no wrong answers at TrekRanks. It's not about being right or definitive in any way. It's about sharing the things we love about Trek, and we love it all, from TOS to TNG, straight through to Enterprise and the Kelvin timeline, and now Discovery and Short Treks and Star Trek Picard, and soon we'll have Strange New Worlds as well. It's all fair game here on the TrekRanks podcast.
Interface, net access, channel 90.
And you can find TrekRanks on the net access interface links at TrekRanks.com. And you can contact me directly on Twitter at TrekRanks or at Enterprise Extra. You can also call and leave us a message with your own picks at 609-512-LLAP. That's 609-512-5527. And if you do that, there's a good chance you can be on the show just like Steven is today. Okay, Heather and Steven, why don't you guys let everybody know how they can get a hold of you on the net access interface. Heather.
The primary place you can find me is on Twitter. My Twitter handle is at nerdygal33, and my Twitter name is Never Apologize for Being Nerdy, because those are great words to live by. And as you mentioned, you can find my brand new little podcast called the Promenade Merchants Podcast, also on Twitter at Prom Trek Pod.
Great job on that. And Steven, how about you, man? How can people talk Trek with you?
Best place to talk Trek with me is at Twitter, and it's at Stephen, STEPHEN _ Pastran, PASTRAN. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me and just, talk Trek. I don't tweet much, but I'm always replying to things. So I like to engage with,
Awesome. Great job. Okay, let's get into our Level One Diagnostic to get into today's show.
Diagnostic cycle will be complete in 20 seconds.
So for this week's diagnostic cycle, I want to make sure we break down exactly what we mean by guilty pleasures. This is going to be real quick. Obviously, no one ever feels guilty watching any episode of Star Trek, especially Star Trek Enterprise. We love them all. But, there are those episodes out there that maybe aren't exactly top 10 quality, and people sometimes make fun of them or for whatever reason just have a bit of a reputation. This episode is about highlighting those misunderstood or disrespected episodes that for some reason you like. So for whatever reason, could be one scene you love or the overall tone of the episode or just a performance. But despite some of those, perceived reputations the episode might have, you still love it. So there's no guilt here. That's our quick disclaimer. So just wanted to get that out in our diagnostic cycle. So now let's get into our Prime Directives and see how everybody narrowed down their list.
I do not concur with your captain's decision.
She's following our Prime Directive.
Define Prime Directive.
Okay, so Heather, let's start with you. How did you define your Prime Directive and finalize your Guilty Pleasure Enterprise episodes?
Well, I started to approach it very analytically and then just decided that didn't work with me when approaching Enterprise that way. So I went more with kind of like gut feeling / episodes that just don't get talked about enough, because I just went through the 4 seasons and I pulled out episodes that I knew I enjoyed, but they're not ones that really come up in conversation a lot when you start talking about Enterprise. So my list starts out with some that are true guilty pleasures that you're going to look at and go, yeah, okay, yeah, you might have to defend yourself a little bit on these. But then it moves into episodes that I think are actually really good episodes. They just don't get mentioned in conversation.
All right. That is perfect. And yeah, we've had guests on the Guilty Pleasures try to approach it with the analytical kind of scientific level where it has to be at a certain level or below for them to pick it. So looking at you, Thad, and Ron Warble. Okay, Steven, how about you? How did you break it all down?
Well, at first I went very analytical. I in preparation I went and listened to the 2 previous guilty pleasure episodes. Some, I wanted to see how others gauged their guilty pleasure list, and so I too went to IMDb and I looked to see what was under a 7, and I found there was more episodes than I thought there would be. So then I just completely abandoned that idea. And what I decided to go with was, in terms of, if I was going to do a full Enterprise, like 4-season rewatch, what episodes are not that great, but I like, that I would be okay with not skipping. When I made my list, I was very surprised with what ended up on there. And so in terms of my enjoyment of them or my distaste of them, and so it just more so in terms of rewatchability, what I could do without, maybe in terms of the storyline going on at the time. It's pretty much where I came down on.
Okay, yeah, so that's funny. You guys both kind of started with that analytical approach that we've heard on previous episodes, and then abandoned it. I love it. Yeah, I could never do it that way. I'm pretty similar to both you guys, just in terms of, I mean, listen, I love Trek so much. There's never going to be anything that's truly a guilty pleasure for me. I watch them all. I don't skip anything. But, you look for those ones that you just think don't get the right respect, or that other people don't like, but for some reason you're like, nah, I kind of like it. I know nobody else likes it, but
right.
For whatever reason, I kind of like it. And that's where I focused. And I ended up with probably about 10 on my list, and it was kind of hard to finally narrow it down, but I feel pretty good about it. Although I did share one of my picks with Alex Perry, one of our frequent hosts, and he was like, dude, yes, wrong answers. I cannot believe you picked that. So we're gonna see.
You just had to find a reason to mention Alex Perry on this episode.
No, that's right, because you've been on with him. Wait, was it twice before? That's right, it was.
Yes,
yeah,
both my other episodes were with Alex.
All right, I'm cutting that out. I'm not all right. Okay, let's get into the order of things.
I am a Jem'Hadar. He is a Vorta. It is the order of things.
As always, a quick reminder on how we're going to go through the order of things. First, each of us will reveal our 5-word summary and a hashtag to tease our pick. Then we'll reveal our pick for our Enterprise Guilty Pleasure episode and the specific reasons we're highlighting it. And at the end, we'll ask everyone for a few secondary system selections for the picks that just missed our list. And as always, if we have any duplicate picks, make sure you listen for the Defiant Torpedoes. Okay, Heather, let's kick this off with you. What's your number 5 pick for a top 5 Enterprise Guilty Pleasure episode? Can't wait to hear this.
All right, number 5. 5 words to quote Dr. Frankenstein. It's alive. Hashtag Mama Mayweather knows best. It is season 2, episode 20, Horizon.
Ooh, okay. I did look at this one. I'm wondering what your 5 words and a hashtag is alluding to.
Well, it's alluding to the B plot of the story where T'Pol is being coerced by Archer and Trip to go to movie night for the first time, and they watch Frankenstein.
Perfect. Yes. Okay.
Which I just think, I mean, there's not a whole lot going on in this episode, but I think it's so much fun with that whole movie storyline. And when they asked Paul after she's seen it what she thought of the movie, and she tells them that she thinks like new people arrive or new Vulcans arriving on Earth need to watch it so they can learn how humans react to people who are different from them. And then that line was actually when they were watching the planet devolve at the end, and she looks at Archer and goes, to quote Dr. Frankenstein, it's alive.
Oh man, that's so great. I didn't, I mean, I'm remembering it now that you're saying it. So that's so cool. I love that.
But yeah, I love that story. I love the fact that we get to dive into Travis's personal life, because this is literally the only episode that focuses on Travis Mayweather throughout the entire run of Enterprise.
That's right. Yeah.
Love that we get to meet his family, his ship, his former crew. Like I said, there's not a whole lot of exciting stuff going on. I mean, yeah, his freighter ship almost blows up, oops, oh well. But I think it's really cool to just see that side of him and where he came from, and how he really still cares about them, like wanting to make improvements on their ship and everything, and take what he's learned back to his family and his former crew to help make their life better. So I there's a lot of little things about this episode that I just love.
I'm putting this down on my rewatch list right now because I've of course remember it now. She says I'm going to suggest to Ambassador Saval that Vulcans watch this. That's so good. I forgot about that B storyline. I love this pick. I definitely thought about it. Steven, what's your take on it?
That's a great pick, Heather. I like that moment when they're watching the movie and Phlox commenting. He goes about the technique. He goes, to this Dr. Frankenstein, the technique is not too dissimilar to a practice on Bessari too. And so Paul has to turn around and say, if you'd like to, she said something about, we could pause the movie if it's in the way of your conversation.
Oh my God, That's right. That's so good.
This is a good pick, Heather. I like it.
That's awesome. I'm curious if we're going to see any other Boomer episodes in this, in our picks. So great start. All right, Steven, how about you, man? What's your number 5 Enterprise Guilty Pleasure episode?
So my number 5 words and 5 words are Starship or a Haunted House, #Letter to Dr. Lucas. It is season 3's episode 16's Doctor's Orders.
This is a great pick because go tell us what I got so much to say.
It's directed by Roxanne Dawson too. And so it's Enterprise is their own course to Azadi Prime, but they're in the Expanse, and they come across a transdimensional disturbance, and the whole crew's got to go under. And at first, when I was doing my picks at first, I always try to remember, since I finished the series so recently, I try to remember how I felt the first time I watched it. Mm-hmm. And so thinking back on that, the whole nature of the Expanse I thought was interesting, and the fact that Phlox had to put everybody down, and I really like I like that it's the framing device of it is very much a letter to Dr. Lucas. It's to me, in terms, when it came to picking the guilty pleasure, I almost don't like the episode, but it's John Billingsley's performance as Phlox that makes me enjoy it. And so, just I could listen to him narrate an audiobook and I'd enjoy it. And so in terms of, the whole Xindi arc, it kind of falls a little flat for me, but I really like that, when Phlox, I never should have let Mr. Tucker talk me into watching The Exorcist last week. And, and we go through the episode and he's seeing, he's hearing all these noises, he's seeing all these things. And then he has Porthos with him. The real kicker at the end, that's what really turned me on to actually liking the episode, because up until that point I did not like the episode.
Right.
But I think it definitely was the reveal at the end when he's escorting T'Pol to her quarters, and then he looks at her and she's asleep, and you realize, it affected him too. And so that's mostly why I picked that one.
No, that's a great breakdown. And I mean, it's never been one of my favorite episodes, partially I think because it feels so much like the 7 of 9 Voyager episode 1.
Yeah.
It's really, really similar, and it's a little too similar. But having said that, this is an awesome guilty pleasure because there's all these reasons that you said you liked it. I love that we got the Enterprise movie theme on our first 2 picks here. That's amazing.
That's right.
And like you said, the best thing about this episode and why it's a great guilty pleasure is John Billingsley's performance. Mm-hmm. Phlox. He's so good. He's so strong. He's so watchable in anything he does. Even this story, which is a little bit of a retread, but I love it. I love it. Heather, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a great pick. The thing that really gets me about this episode is towards the end when like you see him talking to T'Pol through most of the episode, and then you realize that Paul wasn't anywhere around half the time when he was walking through. And you're like, he was really hallucinating there. But definitely a great pick.
All right, that's a good one. All right, let's close out round 5 with my pick. Full disclosure, this is the one that Alex Perry made fun of me for picking. Okay, and this is by the way, I never give tell my picks early, but I just happened to mention it to him, and he was like, "What are you thinking?" Anyway, here we go. 5 words and a hashtag. Rogue hunters bested by Archer, hashtag scantily clad slug. And yes, it's Enterprise Season 1. It's Rogue Planet. And I know that the science of this episode is not very good. It's just a planet alone in space with no sun, and there's hot gas venting from the interior, and there's an atmosphere somehow, and they have a diverse animal population and vegetation. But I don't care about any of that because it's science fiction, so anything's possible. But I'm a big anti-hunting guy, and I do love the anti-hunting message in this episode. Not going to apologize for that. I hate hunting, hunters, killing animals, especially in the guise of sport like you see in this episode. And the story's a bit ridiculous, and it's dark, and you can barely see anything happening. They got the little lights on their face, and then out of nowhere you get this kind of weird kind of Star Trek trope of a beautiful woman appears to Archer, and she's a slug. And I don't know why, but for some reason, it's a hot mess, but I don't care. I like it. I go back to it. It's got some really strong actors and actresses in it, including the woman who plays kind of the Wraith, who died last year, sadly, Stephanie Niznik, actress. She was in Insurrection as well. She died at like 52, but yeah, I knew this was going to be one that I picked because I like it. I don't know why. It is a classic guilty pleasure. Heather, what's your take on Rogue Planet?
Yeah, I mean,
it's an episode of Star Trek.
I don't want to say anything bad because I'm feeling I'm going to be on the hot end of the conversation. One of my picks too.
Got it.
So, I mean, it's an interesting episode. I knew you liked this one because didn't you pick Archer and the Wraith as your one-off romance list? Or I think it was somebody on that episode.
No, I definitely did not. I don't think I've ever picked Rogue Planet before. I'm going to check right now.
Yeah, I remember that from somewhere. I remember it.
Catherine Robinson picked it, who is the sorceress.
Okay. I knew someone on that
She
episode.
picked in one-off romances. Holy crap, she picked Archer and the Wraith. Yeah. How awesome. I knew I liked Catherine for a reason. That's a great pick. Okay, what about you, Stephen? What's your take on Rogue Planet?
Yeah, this is not one that I even thought of in preparing for this. This is I hate to say it, but I kind of don't remember this one.
Yeah,
but when you brought up the Wraith, then it kind of clicked in my head. I do remember a little bit about the Wraith, and I guess all I can say really is, yeah, it's an episode of Star Trek.
It's an episode of Star Trek that most people like to make fun of and forget exists. So, okay, let's go to round 4. And Heather, what's your number 4 pick?
All right, number 4, 5 words. Transporter ghosts that murder people. Hashtag never meet your heroes. It is season 4, episode 10, Daedalus.
I am so glad you picked this. I thought about it, but I didn't put it on my secondary systems. But
Daedalus.
There's something about this episode that, it doesn't fit in the season, and it's definitely like a low point of the season. But there's, it's not terrible. Anyway, let's hear why you picked it.
Well, I love this episode, and I think it has something to do with just getting to meet Emery Erickson, the inventor of the transporter. And he's kind of like, if you compare his character to like the many times we've met Zephyr Cochrane across the years, he's kind of like the different type of genius where Cochrane was the one who didn't want to be famous and just wanted to go about his life. And Erickson's the one who, after he invented something, was constantly looking for the next thing. And it literally sort of drove him to the point of insanity. So I think it's really cool to see the differences between them. And like I said, with my hashtag, never meet your heroes, it's interesting to see, like at the start of the episode, how Trip is so excited to meet Dr. Erickson. And then by the end of the episode, he doesn't want anything to do with him just because of the way Erickson treats him throughout the episode and how he lied to get onto the ship, how someone ended up dying because of it, because he didn't tell him what he actually wanted to do things for. So I mean, I think it's an important story because it shows the different side of these inventors who were a major part of making Starfleet what it was. And and I really like that it actually happens in season 4, because as much as everybody looks at it as kind of like a low point of season 4 amongst all the amazing 2 and 3 parters, it's an episode where you're reminded about Archer's history, because like like the ship goes through everything it does in season 2 and season 3 and the beginning of season 4, and you forget that Archer really has this family history of his father being a person who was a major player in getting the ship off the ground, and how his family relates and has known like these other inventors, and he's met Zephyr Cochrane, and he knows Erickson personally and was best friends with his son and things like that. So I think it adds like important little tidbits to Archer's story in that aspect.
I really love that perspective, Heather. That's great. It does kind of open you up to remember. It serves a real good purpose there, that it reminds you that, hey, Archer was all of these other things before he captained the NX-01 and went out on this 4-year journey. So that's really cool. I love the relationship with the daughter. Danica, I think was her name, and of course let's highlight Bill Cobb's the actor who played.
Oh, he's so
Emery
good.
Erickson.
He was phenomenal.
Amazing career. I think he passed recently as well, I think. But Steven, what's your take on Daedalus? I love this pick.
I'm going to be honest, Heather, this is not one I considered, but I want to go back and rewatch this now in light of your perspective.
Me too.
The thing I do remember is, because this is right off the heels of the Vulcan trilogy, I believe. And so I just think it's placed in such an odd point of the season. This is definitely not one I thought about, but I do like Tucker wanting to meet him. It almost reminded me of, if I can kind of remember, it almost reminded me of Geordi and Scotty when they meet, but not so much like Geordi had like a fascination with Scotty, but just in a sense, just, two, kind of, really, really like guys who are good with their craft and stuff. So it just kind of, talking shop a little bit, but this is going to go on the rewatch list.
Same, and that's another good take. The Geordi, Scotty, and Tucker Erickson. I love this. This is awesome. All right, Steven, how about you? What's your number 4 pick?
My number 4 pick is 5 words. We don't get VIPs often. # Columbus Magellan, Travis Mayweather. It is season 2, episode 20's Horizon.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and Horizon. Just kind of a little bit based off of what Heather already said. I mean, it's really the only Travis centric episode. Episode opens with him, and just right away when we find out his father passed away. That was just such a gut punch of for a character that we don't really spend too much time on. I'm not sure what else I can add, but I really love. Before Travis goes on to goes to his family ship, Trip's like, oh, hey, by the way, I took some photos and, that way you can give them to your mom. Like, I love that little detail. I thought we should have got this episode sooner, maybe in season 1. And so I do like that moment when he's in the mess hall with Lieutenant Reed, and he goes, Starfleet should have more families on board. And Reed says something to the effect of, that we need some psychologists. And I just, I like that back and forth. And then the best one of all, the one that really landed the spot for me on this list, when Archer's talking to him and saying he got a letter from his father. He wrote one sentence, and I forget what he says word for word, but it's just how that affects Travis, and just, again, like a character that we don't really spend too much time on. It really made me appreciate him, going forward, as we got into, the really arc heavy, episodes later in the next few seasons. So that's why I picked it. Yeah.
All right. Well, we got some early boomer love in these first 2 rounds.
Oh, yeah.
Heather, any final take on Horizon?
The only thing I want to add is that I also love that it's the second time and the first time since the pilot episode where you see the sweet spot in the Enterprise.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
There's no gravity.
I forgot.
Archer goes to meet him there. Yeah.
So this is the other. I think it's only 2 times, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see if we get any more boomers in the next 3 rounds. Close out round 4 with my pick, also from season 2. 5 words and a hashtag. Magnificent 7 of the NX-01 hashtag Vulcan martial arts Suthmana. And it is Marauders from Enterprise Season 2. And this is just a little throwaway episode.
Oh,
it doesn't mean anything, but I love it. I go back to it a lot because it just has a great energy and it's super fun. And you talked a little bit about kind of the underdog earlier, Stephen. And this is that underdog story. Archer has this great speech in this one where he's like, I don't like bullies. And we're going to stand up to these Klingons. It's the one where there's these Klingons who are just kind of abusing these deuterium mining colonists. And it's just super fun. It's got this Magnificent 7 homage, and I love that movie. And it's big and grand. They have this great outdoor production design and location shoot. All these Klingons are just chewing the scenery. I love, there's one moment where the Klingon is like bullying and just kind of abusing this guy. And he's like, I could get my deuterium anywhere. I get it from you because I like you. Just like a bully would say.
We don't have it. I told you 2 pumps were down.
They all appear to be working.
We were just able to repair them.
You're lying!
Leave him alone. He'll get your deuterium.
Wait, please.
I can get deuterium anywhere. I come here because I like you. When you show me hospitality and respect.
Yeah, it just kind of resonates with me, and I really do. The one thing that I always take away from this is this reference to the Susmanas, the Vulcan martial arts that T'Pol teaches the colonists. And I love that because it was later, Michael Burnham referenced it in Context is for Kings. And it's named after Mike Sussman, who's one of the great underrated Star Trek writers through the years there with Enterprise. So just super fun. I love it. Heather, what's your take on Marauders?
Yeah, I love this episode. It's on my secondary systems, so it didn't quite make my list. The one thing I really love about it is that it's kind of like a classic sci-fi trope where they go to help the downtrodden people on a planet, but it's not something you get to see in Star Trek that much because you get to see it in Enterprise because they don't have the Prime Directive. So they're like, hey, they need help. We're going to go help them. But like in earlier series and episodes, you don't really get to see something as blatantly fun as teaching the villagers how to fight and defend themselves from Klingons because the Prime Directive would prohibit them from doing that. So yeah, that's one of the things I love about it.
I like that. It is kind of a storytelling trope, but not one we see a lot in Trek. Steven, how about you on Marauders?
Yeah, this one isn't even one I considered as a guilty pleasure because I really like this episode. Yeah,
I get it.
I really like this episode. I mean, the Klingons are my favorite Star Trek race. And so anytime they show up almost anywhere, I'll watch and I'm going to be a fan of. But it's kind of like what you said, Jim, about, the Archer speech and just kind of like the bully. And he's like, I get mine from you because I like you. It reminds you of like Biff from Back to the Future, almost like, McFly, you want me to get, you want me to lose my job. Yeah, I got to rewrite. And just it's that same type of bully nature. But and kind of like what Heather said, there's no prime, there's no Prime Directive. We don't see this type of story. And so it was very interesting the first time I saw it. I really latched onto it. And it's one I'll definitely rewatch from time to time.
It's funny because with guilty pleasures, there is that level where like you can't pick an episode that you really love that you have.
I know.
And there's a couple I thought about early that I was like, because I know other people don't love it, but I'm like, no, I love that one too much to pick it. So I totally get that, Stephen. Yeah. Okay, let's go to round 3, the soup round. Heather, what's your number 3 pick?
And now, as I'm sure that somebody out there has said, it's time to pay for the soup.
Soup round. 5 words. Too nice for a bounty hunter. # or for a Tellarite. It is season 2, episode 25, Bounty.
Wow. Ooh. I dig this pick. I love this Tellarite. He's super cool, but go. Yeah, go.
He is. He's amazing. And I mean, I love this episode. It's just so much fun to me. Yeah. Like from the very start where he tricks them by pretending he's going to be a tour guide on the planet that they're visiting. And
by the way, that planet sounded amazing.
I know. I want to go on vacation there, man.
We're also here for a little shore leave.
Shore leave?
Vacation. It's been a while since we've had a chance to relax.
In that case, I recommend you visit the Equatorial Range. The view from the North Summit is inspiring.
You've been here before?
Many times. I prefer to think of it as my own personal retreat. But you mustn't leave until you've experienced the hydrothermal pools of Rengam.
Where are they?
The polar island chain. 227 kilometers from the southern tip of the Ryko shoreline. Look for the pyroclastic debris field, then follow the lava tubes.
Sounds like we could use a guide.
I'd be happy to show you.
And then just like even after he captures them and Archer convinces him to help him when they have the other bounty hunter chasing him. And then he starts telling Archer about how he's not really a bounty hunter and he was a merchant. And he starts talking about his merchant ship like any captain you've ever met throughout Star Trek talking about how much they love their ship. So it's like at that point you can really relate and feel for this guy because he's got that same good nature of he just wants his nice ship that he loves back and he's willing to do anything for it and he's not really that bad. And I love how they end up tricking the Klingons at the end, which was good because he didn't get the entire bounty he was told he was going to get anyway. So yeah, it's a fun little episode.
No, it's great. No, this one was also directed by Roxanne Dawson, which is super cool. You know, that other bounty hunter was played by Robert O'Reilly. Gowron.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty.
That's so cool.
He's really good in that role. He's just on screen, on the view screen, but he's super cool. So yeah, I dig this pick. I did think about this one for sure because I like this. I like the heart of this one. I feel so bad for this guy. He just wants to get his brother back together and get back to their life, but it's just a complete lost cause. So, Stephen, what's your take on Bounty?
Yeah, this is another episode I actually really like because it continues the story from Judgment. Like it references when it definitely references the bounty on Archer because he escaped Rura Pente. This isn't one I considered for my list, but is this also the one where T'Pol is dealing with Ponfar?
Oh, it is. It is.
I can't remember. It is, right? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. That's what unfortunately, that's the part I remember from it. But I do think it's interesting. Just kind of what the other storyline was to this. But this isn't one I would have thought of for this. But I really do like how it just kind of picks up the thread from Judgment.
Another failed Ponfar B storyline in Star Trek. Okay, let's go to Stephen. What's your soup round pick?
All right, my soup round pick is 5 words. Cretacean diplomacy breeds offensive nature. # Porthos in peril. My number 3 pick is season 2's episode 5's A Night in Sickbay.
Oh my goodness, I love this. So wait, hold on. We've got 4 straight season 2 picks, and we might as well just make it 5 straight because my 5 words in a #. My round 2 pick is also A Night in Sickbay. My 5 words: Pyrithian bats are my jam. # and Pyrithian Moonhawks 2. So, Stephen, tell us why you picked A Night in Sickbay, and we'll just talk about it here.
Yeah, see, so this is the part of my list where I think going forward I might get turned on by everybody listening. But
I like this episode.
See, I really like this episode too, but only for. So let me back up. I really, I really like this episode. Cretaceans aside, I do not like the Cretaceans.
Oh no, they're terrible.
I don't think we needed to see them again. Then the whole apology ceremony, I could do without it. But what I do like about it is the whole, like my hashtag says, Porthos is in peril. I love seeing archers. Yeah, I mean, if you bring a dog on a starship to explore, I mean, that love is so precious and says more than what it shows. But and that's pretty much why I kind of picked one. And then his whole conversation with Phlox and just we'll know in a couple of hours. Just Archer kind of regurgitates that statement over and over. But I do find it interesting and odd that Phlox and he's like, well, have you thought about why would you care what T'Pol thinks? And just they kind of tiptoe around the tension between T'Pol and Archer. But I kind of like how towards the end of the episode they do away with it. And I in my head right now I can't remember if it's ever touched on or referenced again between the two. But I do like that we get more backstory about, Phlox and Denobula and his family and just, Archer's really, I really liked it because it kind of changes Archer. It's the beginning of season 2. It really turns Archer around to how he feels about just, other alien cultures in general. But it really does push Archer's character forward and kind of gets rid of some things that we didn't really need to tread, but we treaded anyways. And I don't like the Cretaceans.
Listen, I'm fired up. You said that about Archer because this is part of Archer's character development. So a lot of people like the trash this episode because of the way Archer's behaving, but that's who he is. He's cranky. He's in a space where he's not fully formed. And one of the things I like, and I'm going to connect back to 2 previous picks. So in Marauders, when he gives that speech about the bullies, he also tells the guy at that time that, hey, when my very first mission on this ship, I want to go explore, and I end up fighting these Sulabans, and I'm shooting back at them, and he's basically saying I hated it because I'm trying to kill somebody, and he's trying to kill me, and that's not what I signed up for. I want to explore. So I love that Marauders is a part of that development. I love what Heather you said about Daedalus as part of Archer's backstory being remembered in that. So this is a part of Archer's development, and he's cranky and he's acting a bit of a fool here. And he's worried about his dog, but he learns from it and he grows from it. And yeah, I like this episode. I mean, some of the humor's a little maybe too on the nose, but for some reason it works for me. I think obviously the part with Porthos is one of my favorite elements of it, and I think one of the reasons I like it. But I've been defending this episode since October 16th, 2002, when it first aired. Because I was like, I like that one, people. Sorry.
It's like you were saying, it's part of Archer's development. Like we want to, because Marauders is the episode right after, and we want to see our captains grow. We want to see, I always. In my head, I've always kind of akin Jonathan Archer to Benjamin Sisko. These are captains that from when we first meet them to when we end with them, it's just some of it's my favorite, quick character developments, those 2 characters. So I always kind of relate the 2 together, because when we get to the end with Jonathan Archer, I mean, he's the captain, that I would want to, serve with, and that's part of the reason why I like Enterprise. And this episode is, just obviously has a hand in doing that.
So Heather, how about you? What's your take on A Night in Sickbay? I can't wait to hear this.
I love this episode.
Good.
Yes.
It did not make my list because, like I said, part of my Prime Directive was episodes that people don't really talk about, and this one gets talked about a lot.
It sure does.
It's why I put it in the middle of my list. It's kind of the tipping point right there.
Yep.
Yeah. So I love this episode. There's a lot to love about it, especially his relationship with Porthos and the fact that he would go to such lengths to take care of him. You can argue about his crankiness and his actions, and maybe he shouldn't have brought the dog down on the planet in the first place, all you want, but it's a good episode. And plus you gotta enjoy the end with Archer.
It's hilarious.
Without the shirt and the saw. Yeah, I can't help but like that part. So thumbs up on this one. I'm a fan of it.
And listen, all those Archer things are things that those are things he did because he was in a bad space, and he learned from it, and he developed. This is part of his development. Okay, let's go. Forgot I was going to make a Polarian Slips joke. Okay, forget about it. I'll get it in later.
I also wanted to say, I love that line that Hoshi has where she goes, "Do we have a chainsaw on board?"
Oh my God, that's so great. That's so great. Okay, let's go to round 2. Heather, what's your number 2 pick?
All right, number 2, 5 words. Prison isn't what it seems. Hashtag hell of a jailbreak. It is from season 1, episode 21, Detained.
Okay. Archer imprisoned again. 2 straight picks for you.
So I really like this episode because, I mean, we were just talking so much about Archer's development. I think this is an episode where he really learns that sometimes first impressions, you can't judge an alien race on a first impression. And so learning that not all Suliban are bad, and just the ones that he met were part of a different faction, and these guys that he's imprisoned down on the planet with are just ordinary people who are trying to live their lives and are being judged by the bad actions of a small group of their race. So I love that aspect of it, and I also love the aspect, like not the main guy that he talks to. I don't know his name, or his name is mentioned, but I didn't write it down.
The main Tandaran, played by the Dean Stockwell character,
Colonel Grat.
No, the other Suliban one.
Oh, like his friend. Yeah. So I was gonna. Yeah, that's the guy played by Dennis Christopher, is one of my favorite actors.
Yeah, so I love that not only is it challenging, like, their reaction to dealing with the Suliban, but it's also challenging to the Suliban who are in prison there and their reaction to dealing with Archer and Mayweather, and not trying to have biases because they look like the Tandorans.
Right.
So I love that it goes both ways.
Yeah, I did think about this one too, but I decided I like it a little too much to include it because I do. I love that obviously there's a Quantum Leap reunion with Dean Stockwell. Dennis Christopher is a great actor who plays kind of the father of the Suliban girl. And then the other guy who's in it is played Kevon, is Christopher Shea, who played Kevon from Deep Space Nine. The Vorta.
I know he's looked.
Yeah, he looks.
Oh.
And Dennis Christopher played a Vorta in The Search as well. He played the Vorta that was part of that false reality that they had the crew going through. Okay, I digress. Detained is a fun episode, says a lot. It's a classic, I mean, just really good Star Trek morality play. And I love the Suliban. I think the Suliban I picked them in my Enterprise Underrated as an underrated element of the series. Stephen, what's your take on Detained?
No, I really liked Detained. I remember the first time I saw this, I was blown away that the Suliban were being detained because they have their genetic enhancements. They have, they're getting, I would assume future guy would have told them, hey, don't be here at this moment or you're going to be detained. And, a lot of you guys are going to be, kind of like locked down. But I kind of, involving the Suliban, it just, I like that element about it a lot. And this is also kind of because Archer gets beat up a lot, like throughout Enterprise. It's just, I think this is one of them where Archer kind of gets beaten on a little too much too. But I do like that it has the Suliban are probably one of my favorite parts about this episode. It's not one I considered, but having them there, I love the temporal Cold War connection a lot.
Yeah, Scott Bakula loved getting beat up. It was pretty clear. All right, Steven, what's your number 2 pick?
All right, my number 2 is also on season 1, and it's my 5 words are, thought you were the captain. Hashtag we rotate. He's captain next week. It is 2 days and 2 nights.
Yes, that's a great 5 words.
It's directed by Michael Dorn, actually.
Oh, that's right.
So if you don't know this one is the crew finally makes it to Ryza. It actually has a connection to this episode. because when Archer beams down and he meets the woman Kayla,
it's connected to Detained,
it's connected to Detained, and she brings up the fact that the Suliban are kind of like attacked her family, her husband, and just I remember in the episode Archer asked her, like, did Colonel Grat send you, and just he starts like almost trying to interrogate her, but so I like it that I love that connection to Detained, and just kind of the she brings up their genetic enhancements, and just and you almost think for a second, like, what does she know about the temporal Cold War? It's just it's not fully there. Like I kept thinking there was going to be a thread, and there's a small thread, and then the reason it's on this list is I love Hoshi's storyline in this. She goes down there it's really nice seeing Hoshi kind of put her what she does best to work down there. She learns the languages in less than a day. She speaks Ryzen pretty well. I remember she's talking to the older couple and just like, wow, you don't even have an accent on it. This isn't part of my Prime Directive in terms of rewatchability. This is one I like it more so for that temporal, small little connection with Kayla and Archer.
Mm-hmm.
And Hoshi's storyline. I think those two kind of work well for me. I just and I think in terms, like, I don't really need the episode, but I'll watch it. And it's just hilarious. I think it's just so funny. We watch Trip and Reed just bumble their way, like, two guys. Yeah, we're gonna broaden our horizons, and tell them about I saved Enterprise in my underwear, and just port those and Rilo, and just I do love how T'Pol gives Archer the teachings of Surak, so that's a nice little plant early on in season 1. And just that's about it. I really like it.
I love, my favorite part of this episode for sure is the Hoshi part. I just love all those scenes where she's just completely in control and having a great time on Risa.
Yeah.
Heather, what's your take on 2 days, 2 nights?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a fun episode. It's not one that made my list because their trip to Risa comes up a lot when people talk about Enterprise.
Yeah, it sure does.
So I love it. I mean, I love seeing what they each get up to on their own instead of like just one of them getting into trouble together, like
right.
And everybody else having to save them. They each get into trouble on their own and then kind of have to save themselves. But yeah.
Your 5 words said it all. With I'm captain this week. He's captain next week. That's great. Okay.
I love that. Yeah, I just find it so funny. And then he's like, tell him when you saved the Enterprise in your underwear.
All right, let's go to my round 2 pick. I'm going to defend this one to the hilt. So just be aware in advance. My 5 words and hashtag: first real contact with Xindi, hashtag scantily clad spy. And it is from Enterprise Season 3, Episode 4, Rajin. And I totally understand the general problematic nature of this episode, and never really a lot of fun anytime you're depicting slave markets and sex workers, and if it's being portrayed in any kind of not super serious light. But having said that, this episode is better than people remember, and I enjoy it a lot as a guilty pleasure. The first half, definitely problematic, slave market, how Rajin ends up on the Enterprise. And then from there, she has like these seduction scenes with a few members of the crew where it's a little bit by the numbers storytelling, I think. But I tell you, the second half of this episode is super cool. It's your first real contact between the NX-01 crew and the Xindi. It's the first time you're really seeing these ships interact with the Enterprise. You got a couple of reptilian ships showing up. They board. There's a great phaser fight, some really good action, and then out of nowhere the insectoids show up, and that's a really great scene when they're fighting in the hulls of the ship, and they fire that kind of crazy glob phaser that sticks to the wall and then shoots backwards, which is problematic if it shoots back at yourself. But we'll forget about that anyway. And then you got this whole bioweapon subplot that carries out again in Carpenter Street. And yeah, I love the scene with the aliens on the trade market that they're down at with the guy who wants the Trellium D, and they trade a bunch of spices for him.
On our planet, Wars were fought over these. Careful.
What's this one called?
Black pepper. There's paprika, mustard seed. I'm partial to the cayenne myself. I'm sure you'll find these all very exotic.
I believe you have something for us. Of course. I've reviewed your engineering specifications. You appear to have the necessary equipment to produce liquid Trillium D.
I don't know. There's just something about this episode that I enjoy, and I find it to be kind of a key point of the Zindi arc, despite some of the problematic framing of Rajin and that character. But yeah, there you go. I'm defending Rajin, my number 2 pick. Heather, what's your take on Rajin? You hate it.
I get the points that you mentioned that you liked. So I do.
Perfect.
I do think it's a really cool introduction to them actually meeting the Zindi face to face, and I think it's cool to see the first example of like a alien kind of market in the Expanse, which is in a place we've never seen before. I don't like the character of Rashid.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. There's a lot of tropes there that are. This is why this episode's not very well regarded, and why for me there's enough here that I think I feel bad for this episode because it has some of those difficult framings, but the other pieces of the story are actually really pretty cool sci-fi elements that help kind of start the Zindi storyline rolling. Steven, what's your take on this?
I'm kind of piggybacking off of what you just said. You know, the whole nature with the Expanse, and really getting into the whole part of this episode with the Zindi and the bioweapon are the parts I enjoy the most of this episode. And I always found that part interesting because to be honest, I don't really remember the other parts of this episode. When I remember watching the season, I was just so intrigued. I was like, the Zindi are going to be such a huge threat. I can't believe there's a bioweapon. I just remember being so like worried for our crew. I do remember this though, with T'Pol and Tucker still doing the Vulcan neuropressure, and I might have to actually rewatch this one to remember the main part of the story. But I just remember anything with the bioweapon and the Zindi. I was like, oh man, this is crazy.
That part's really good. Most people are flipped. They remember kind of the other parts of it and forget kind of the cool Zindi parts. Okay, enough on Rajin, but I tell you, it's not that bad. Okay, let's go to round 1. Heather, what is your number 1 Enterprise guilty pleasure episode?
All right, so you'll start to remember my Prime Directive. It was kind of building up to episodes that are actually really good. I just don't think get talked about enough. So my number 1 pick is actually a really good episode, but in the context of the type of episode it is, I don't think it gets mentioned enough. 5 words are 2 legendary Trek guest stars, #both are blue. And it is Season 2, Episode 15, Ceasefire.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like this is kind of the Andorian episode, because everybody loves the Andorians.
Yeah,
but this is the one that kind of gets forgotten and buried under. But just having both Jeffrey Combs and Susie Flaxon playing Andorians in this episode just makes me go, ah!
It's really cool.
It's so much fun to have both of them on screen together. And there's a lot of really world building in this episode, because it's really the first time that Shran goes to Archer for help. Because the first 2 times you meet him, it's kind of Archer helping Shran, and then Shran saving Archer's butt because he felt guilty, but now he's actually coming to Archer for help. It's the first time, I think, by the end of the episode that Sabal has a tiny bit of respect for Archer. Because there's a scene at the very end of the episode where they're leaving, and Ambassador Sabal tells him that his presence was not as meddlesome as he thought it would be.
one of their first breakthroughs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Shran looks at Archer and goes, "I think he likes you, pigskin." It's also the first time that Trip, in command of the Enterprise, puts the Enterprise in between Andorian and Vulcan ships, which happens more than once, because that happens again in season 4.
Yes, that's right.
So yeah, there's a lot of world building and things to love about this episode, besides just the performances in it, which I absolutely also love.
I'm glad you went big on this pick. This is definitely one that for me would be too good to label a guilty pleasure, but I love the way you frame it, because it's an Andorian episode. It's one that's forgotten, or even the Andorian Vulcan kind of episode, or not forgotten, but it's definitely not given the same discussion and focus as so many other episodes. So that's great. Steven, what's your take on Ceasefire?
Heather, I'm just really glad you picked this episode, because I love every episode of Enterprise with the Andorians. Even this one, which, like you guys were saying, it's not really talked about. And that moment that Heather talked about, where Commander Tucker puts the Enterprise down the middle, like, hey, like let's don't fire on each other. Like there's something more to this. I didn't think we would. I didn't think a good episode, like an episode I really love, would end up on this, would end up being talked about. So I'm really glad you picked it. Anytime we get to see Shran, I'm there for it.
And these guest stars, I mean,
yeah, come on, I mean,
yeah, it's really as good as it gets with Susie Plaxton and Jeffrey Combs. I love it. Okay, Steven, how about you? What's your number one Enterprise guilty pleasure episode?
So in making this list, I always assumed, my number one would be the one I'm most guilty about enjoying. And I'm just going to say that to preface this. So having said that, my 5 words are, I'll show you the vault. # rule of acquisition number 6. It's season 1, episode 19, acquisition.
Oh, I had a feeling this would be somewhere on this list. That's awesome.
There was almost no reason the Ferengi needed to show up on Enterprise, and had they not even been mentioned, I'd have been totally fine. However, it is like my Prime Directive. I'm always thinking in terms of, if I'm going to do a rewatch, what am I going to watch all the way through? What can I think about skipping? This is the one I came down on. I mean, you got Ethan Phillips, you got Jeffrey Combs, you got Clint Howard. It's just, I love seeing these guys as the Ferengi, and I really do like how they, at first glance, there doesn't make any sense that they should be able to incapacitate Enterprise. Like what you got to be kidding me. And then you get into it, and it's like, I came around to it, it's actually not that bad. And then they have Archer trying to, Archer to lug in everything, and just, they're taking some of the most ridiculous things. They're taking Travis's helm chair, they're taking food from the mess hall, and just the idea that, they have a vault, that the Enterprise has a vault. Why would, and then the Archer's trying to reason with them, like there is no vault, and he's like, all right, I'll show you the vault. I got gold bars. And this intrigues them so much, You've
reconsidered? I'll show you where the vault is, if you let me keep half the gold. Gold's pressed platinum. Gold bars. Hundreds of them. But I keep half. 10%. 40. 15. 35. And not a bar less. You'll never find the vault without my help. 20% final offer. No deal. I'd rather you take the women and go.
35%? That's not a bad offer, Ulysses. Maybe we should consider it.
No. We'll find the vault ourselves. Graham, start loading the merchandise.
And then the point about it too, because it's in season 1, it's Archer's still very much of the mind from the pilot, how he feels about Vulcans. And so you have, when I think it's Krem. Yeah, it's Krem. I think Krem's looking at T'Pol, and he's like, you don't want her. You got no sense of humor. She's not that interesting. She's always complaining. And then you get the flip side of it later, where Krem sees her again, he goes, the humans, they're deceitful and cruel, and like, humans? And just hearing them say that, so hearing them say humans, just, yes, like, it makes me go, yes, every time I watch this episode. It is one that I like for just, just a lot of the small reasons. Just also, too, when they ask Porthos where the vault is.
Right.
love that little moment. And then they put him in a box. I'm like, no, every time. But
And speaking of guest stars, you got Ethan Phillips and Clint Howard, and of course Jeffrey Combs. So Jeffrey Combs is in both your guys' picks for the first round. Acquisition is one of those ones that when it first aired, people were just like, why? Why are we doing this? But you look back on it now, and it's just a fun episode.
Yeah.
And the most ridiculous thing about this episode is the way they're just taking everything off the ship and just kind of throwing it on their ship with no rhyme or reason. Heather, what's your take on Acquisition?
It's an episode that we didn't really need, but it's ridiculous, and it's always good for a good laugh to sit there and just have a lot of fun laughing with it. So yeah. And
I will say that on our Enterprise Underrated episode, Alex Perry picked this as his episode. So I do remember that because I was shocked. Guilty Pleasure is very different though. Okay, let's close it out with my number one pick. And I love this episode. I almost didn't pick it because I love it too much, but I know that nobody rates this episode. Nobody thinks about it. Nobody remembers it, but I think it's just fantastic. And it's the one I rewatch. Man, I rewatch it a lot. So it is Enterprise Season 1, my 5 words and a hashtag, Archer and Apothecary assist a collie, hashtag, a civilized kiss. It is Civilization, the 9th episode of Season 1 of Enterprise, and I just adore it. It's got this wonderful TOS vibe where they show up for the first time at a planet and it's just there in front of them. And they're just like, okay, what do we do? How do we explore this planet? Do we beam down? They look like us. We could make our faces and look like them and go down there, and their planet just descend Hoshi, but then they pick up a little bit of a energy signature and realize something's going on. So they all go down, and he meets a girl, and they work together on a central mystery that just is super kind of cool. And it's got this big scope. They've got that really cool set with the underground kind of laboratory that the aliens are working in, and yeah, I just love it. There's a great Vader fight on the street. There's apothecaries and universal translator malfunctions. I love that kiss between Archer and Rion. And then they repeat it at the end when he's like, oh, our translators must be malfunctioning. this is Mike Sussman. Mike Sussman wrote this episode, who I mentioned before. That's right. And I know that people just forget this episode even existed. Nobody, I think, hates it, but people just forget it. And I love it. It's for sure my guilty pleasure episode. Heather, what's your take on Civilization?
I forgot it existed.
Exactly.
Oh, no.
Exactly.
I feel kind of shamed about that, because especially you describing it now, I'm remembering the episode, and it is it's a really cool episode, because I mean it really goes into the whole kind of theme of Season 1 and them just being explorers and wanting to explore new planets and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, the first 10 minutes is so cool when they show up and they're just like, what do we do? It's I love it. Steven, what's your take on this one?
I really like this. This was one I remember. I really like this episode. I think, I think Season 1 has a lot of, I would call this one, I guess, I don't know if I'd say underrated, because I do like it so much. I guess I'd maybe call it sneaky good or something, because I do like the structure of it. Like, it's very simple, but it's just interesting, because it's the first crew, to kind of go out there, and so when you gauge it from that frame, it's really interesting. And I think overall, really good episode.
I love that Steven just divulged our TrekRanks secret that underrated, guilty pleasure, sneaky good. It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. Who cares?
I'm glad this one got talked about. It's I love seeing early Season 1 Enterprise. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I as much as Rajin has problems, and I was like, should I even pick it? But I did. This one, I love this episode. This one, go watch this one, people. Rewatch it. It's just a fun Star Trek episode. Full stop. Okay.
Let's see what you can do with the secondary systems.
Heather, what's on your list?
All right. Well, I just got a couple on my secondary systems. Like I said, you mentioned Marauders. That was on my secondary systems. Yep. I got 2 from season 1, Terra Nova.
Yep, that was my toughest cut. I love that one.
And Fortunate Son, which was the other Boomer episode.
Yep. I actually like that one better than Horizon, so I was considering that one more than Horizon.
See, that's why I didn't want to have 2 Boomer episodes on the list, and I like Horizon better, so that's why that one got cut.
Yeah, no, I get that.
I like seeing the Nausicaans in that one.
And then I also have an episode from season 3, which is kind of similar to your regime pick, which is why it didn't make it on my list, but it's Exile. The one with the
weird alien dude that
the weird alien dude with the mind powers who, and like I said, didn't ultimately make the list because he's very mind rapey to Hoshi.
Yeah, that's a good
but the reason it was on my secondary systems is because I love how Hoshi really fights back and defends herself and ultimately figures out the way to get herself out of there. So that's how it ended up on the secondary systems list, because she's awesome.
It's not great, but I get why it would be there. How about you, Steven? Any secondary systems picks?
I have a few. One from season 2. I had Carbon Creek on there. And rewatching Carbon Creek, I really thought I'm this isn't a guilty pleasure because I really love how T'Pol pulls one over on Trip and Archer, but then there's that that masterful reveal towards the end where she's holding the handbag, and it reminded me I don't know if you guys have seen Inception, but I almost felt like an Inception level ending where the top is still spinning, and I just didn't know what to do with that information when I saw T'Pol holding the bag. And I was like, you know what? This really pulled it over on me. To me, it's like T'Pol's Twilight Zone, story time. I had Hatchery from season 3.
Oh yeah,
Hatchery. I when I first was making my list, the Hatchery was one of the ones that I cut. Overall, it didn't seem as a guilty pleasure to me. I'm still like 50-50 on whether I love it or like it. But and then just one more from season 4. I had Bound. With the Orion women, I just there was it was a little. I thought it was a little odd watching it, like rewatching it for this list, and I was like, you know what? I don't think I really like this episode.
So I had that as my special shout out because it's got some of the same framing issues as Rajin in terms of the way it presents itself, but the end is actually pretty clever, where it was kind of a double switch there.
Yeah. And I agree.
And that actress is Sia Baton I think she's really fantastic. She was in Voyager, and of course she's the original Xiao. And for some reason, I was thinking about Bound as well as an episode. Mm-hmm. So I had just 2 more that haven't been mentioned so far. One was Unexpected. I thought that might get picked because that's when you first see it, it's like what I always say about Unexpected is like, really, 4th episode of Enterprise and we're already doing the guy gets pregnant. I mean, what are we? I mean, I remember thinking that when it aired. But when you rewatch it, it's
pretty good.
It's pretty good.
I really like it. This is what I really like.
I mean, the tone issues I think people would be a little bit more concerned about Trip's well-being than just kind of making fun of his arm nipples. But anyway, and then the other one is, hey, it's Archer being taken prisoner again. It's Canamar. That's just another fun little throwaway episode. Okay, I knew we'd get into some deep cut picks here, which I'm going to talk about a little bit in our regeneration cycle as we go through some stats and a quick recap of our picks.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves beta and gamma.
Okay, Heather, recap your top 5 Enterprise Guilty Pleasure episodes.
All right. And round 5 was Horizon. Round 4 was Daedalus from season 4. Round 3 was Bounty. Round 2 was Detained. And round 1 was Ceasefire.
All right. Awesome list. So you had 1 from season 1, 3 from season 2, and 1 pick from season 4. And I just looked this up because I was like, man, I don't remember a lot of these episodes. being picked before. All 5 of your episodes, Heather, first time ever picked on TrekRanks. That's impossible.
Wow.
That's never happened. So
that's insane.
Almost impossible.
Honestly, that's what I was going for.
It's crazy. It's crazy that all 5 are first timers. Okay, Stephen, how about you and your breakdown?
So from round 5, I had from season 3, Doctor's Orders. From round 4, I had Horizon. From round 3, I had A Night in Sickbay. From round 2, I had 2 Days and 2 Nights. And from round 1, I had season 1's Acquisition.
Acquisition. So you had 2 from season 1, 2 from season 2, and 1 from season 3. And for my 5, I had round 5, Rogue Planet. My number 4 pick was Marauders. Number 3 was A Night in Sickbay. Number 2 pick was Rajin. And my number 1 pick was Civilization from season 1. So I had 2 from season 1, 2 from season 2, and 1 from season 3, just like Steven. And the overall breakdowns, we had 2 duplicates, 2 boomer picks, and the season breakdown was actually ended up being pretty even. Season 2 was ahead there for a while. There's only 1 each from season 4 and season 3, which you would, pretty much have guessed coming into this. And then 7 from season 2 and 6 from season 1. So pretty great overall breakdown of some Enterprise deep cut picks, but as always, we've once again entered a temporal causality loop. So before we can depart, it's time to hear from you.
The Enterprise has been caught up in a temporal causality loop, and I suspect that something similar may have happened to you.
And for this week's temporal causality loop, we have an awesome voicemail from Chris on Twitter. He is at Shelf Nerds. We've relayed some of his picks before. His voicemail is fantastic, and it goes back to episode 68 in our Abstract 3 topic, which definitely was one of our wackiest topics and one of our more popular episodes. I got to say, in terms of feedback and listenership, it's that topic where we just did 3. Our topic was 3. And so, okay, let's play his amazing picks right now.
This is Chris Chaplin, otherwise known as @ShelfNerds on Twitter, and this is my top 5 Abstract 3s. Alright, the 5-word summary for my number 5 pick is the start of it all, #OobieDoobie, and this is referring to April 5th, 2063 in Star Trek First Contact. This is where it all started. This is where we get our look at how the Federation was born in this moment of daring and innovation, and also greed for money from Zefram Cochrane. One of my favorite Star Trek movies, and had to go on this list. It was the first thing I thought of. My 4th pick's 5-word summary is Season 3 is beautifully varied. #when TNG truly became. And this is TNG's 3rd season. I feel like the stories in this season are the most imaginative, the richest, the most varied, and a lot of iconic TNG stories and storylines really began here. And it really spent a lot of time with Romulans in a way that they never got as interesting as they were in this season. So season 3 TNG, watch it from top to bottom. It is one of the best of Trek. And another pick from TNG, my 5 words for the soup round is from slim onesies to professionalism. #3 TNG uniforms. TNG went through uniform changes. The first ones were kind of these awkward onesies. And in season 3, there was this other one that had like a 3-part divide on the front. And finally, we got the standard, more professional looking ones for the rest of the season. But I love that it went through this sequence of 3 and ended up with the best. My 2nd pick is We Are Hugh, #3rd of 5 from iBorg. And honestly, I had to choose Hugh, 3rd of 5 for an Abstract 3 because of how important he's going to be going forward. But we also got a good look into the effects of Picard's assimilation when he interacts with Hugh. The episode of iBorg is so so deep in character for Picard. You really see his anger and pain that he's still not really dealt with. So that is an essential episode to me, and it deserves its spot on this list of abstract threes. Last but not least, my first pick is started with 4, hashtag ended with 3. It's B'Elanna Torres's forehead ridges. If you look at B'Elanna from the early seasons, she has 4 ridges. Later seasons, she has 3. I prefer her with the 3. And any excuse to talk about B'Elanna, I will take it because I think she's one of the unsung, wonderful, brilliant characters most developed in all of Star Trek. So there you go. There's my top 5 abstract threes. TrekRanks is the best. Thank you so much, Jim, for bringing us these great conversations about Trek.
All right, that was Chris, and we totally agree with Chris's number 1. I love that. He picked B'Elanna and her 3 forehead ridges, which started as 4 forehead ridges in season 1 and then went down to 3 for the rest of the series, which is an inspired pick. So once again, those picks definitely good enough to get us clear of this week's temporal causality loop. So as always, I want to thank everyone again for all your great responses to the TrekRanks podcast. Please keep your list coming to me at TrekRanks on Twitter so we can retweet them. But we also want to hear from you, so please put together your own list of top 5 Enterprise Guilty Pleasure episodes or a list from any of our past shows and give us a call at the Tricorder Transmissions at 609-512-5527. That's 609-512-LLAP. Or you can just record your list and then send me a DM and link me to it. We can download it that way. And, with Steven, consider it a audition to be on the show if you ever want to be on TrekRanks. Hopefully we'll hear from you so you can be featured on the next episode of TrekRanks. And on the next episode of TrekRanks, we are doing another one of those off-the-wall topics, just like we did with episode 68 with our abstract threes. It's our second abstract topic. Yeah, it's a companion piece to Abstract 3. It's Abstract H. You heard me right. That's right. It's the letter H. It's like an episode of Sesame Street. We're just going to pick 5 things in Trek that we want to talk about related to the letter H. So Heather and Steven, if you had to choose one thing for a topic like Abstract H, what would it be? Putting you guys on the spot. Heather, what do you got?
Well, I don't think there's any character named Heather in Star Trek, because obviously that's the first thing I was going for.
That could work. There must be a Heather somewhere.
Since we are talking about Enterprise, the first thing that popped into my head was Hoshi. So
there you go. Hoshi's
Nice.
a great H. That's fantastic. I love these topics. Steven, how about you, man? What's an H topic for you?
I don't know what this says about me, but the first H I came to was Hertzler, as in J.G. Hertzler.
See, this is why this is going to be a great episode, people. Hertzler, I love it.
I'm staring right at my my 2 Star Trek novels, The Left-Handed Destiny, and his name is right there on it. So
one of the Left-Handed Destiny is one of the best. J.G. Hertzler, the great Martok. Fantastic 2 picks there. I love it. That's going to be a fun topic. So, all right. Well, let's wrap it up here. A huge thanks to Heather Kirby and Steven Pastran. Great to have you guys on the show. Any final Trek subspace communications you guys want to relay before we take off? Heather?
Never apologize for liking Star Trek.
Yes.
No matter what type of episode it is, even if other people don't like it, if you love it, that's what it's all about.
I love it. And check out the Promenade Merchants podcast of Heather's. And Steven, how about you, man? Hope you enjoyed your first TrekRanks experience.
Oh, Jim, it's TrekRanks. I mean, I always saw people tweet saying TrekRanks Homeworks is the best, and they were all right. They were all correct. No, I had such a fun time being on a podcast that I listen to every time an episode comes out. So this was super fun.
Awesome. Appreciate it, man. I'm really glad you revealed to everybody that guilty pleasures, underrated, sneaky good,
Yeah.
it's all the same. It's all the same. Okay. Thanks, everyone, again, for engaging with us here on episode 87 of the TrekRanks podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
We've just received a transmission from the Cretaceans. It's their reconciliation demands. The captain's not gonna believe this.
You'd be surprised, Hoshi.
Captain, I didn't...
It's all right, Ensign. We're on our way.
Well, this isn't so bad. I was sure there'd be something in here about standing on one foot with my eyes shut, reciting the night before Christmas. I went back to sick bay, see if I can get an hour's sleep before the doctor's results come through. Let me know if this fits with your definition of an appropriate apology.
Do we have a chainsaw on board?
Just want to remind everyone again that the entire TrekRanks catalog is available for you to download and listen to at TrekRanks.com and on your podcast player of choice. Our episodes never get carbon dated, so check out the topics you've missed and maybe just want to listen to again over at TrekRanks.com. And a reminder to check out our friends 5-Year Mission at 5yearmission.net. They're writing a song for every episode of Star Trek, and you won't believe how great their music is. They also have a podcast at the Trek Geeks Network, so seek them out. You won't regret it.
Sorry, I'm a little on edge. I haven't slept very much, but I'm doing the best I can.
I understand. Ensign Sato and I have broken down the reconciliation demands into specific categories if you're interested in reviewing them.
My only concern right now is Porthos.
I'm sorry to have interrupted.
No, it's okay. When you get back to the bridge, why don't you send me your lips? List.
2 Pelarians' lips within 30 seconds. Interesting.